What's happening, everyone? My partner's Ian's keeping it real. What's happening, everyone? And welcome to El Chile Boxing Talk, part of the HCP network. Happy to be here with my homies George with Off the Ropes Boxing and MMA, and Nopal Boxeanos, man. I want to give a shout out to JC, who's always here first, and Nando, always usually coming in second, man. Hope you guys are having a good day. Nando says, Ayo, saludos to the Al Chile crew and the chat, HCP. You know that's right. Well, dude, this is a loaded episode, man. I'm happy to be talking about some stuff here with the fellas. How you guys doing?
Doing great. How you guys doing today?
Doing good, man.
Good, man.
Hell yeah, dude. You know, all kinds of good boxing going on, and we got to cover a lot of stuff. But first, a little bit of housekeeping, so I want to start with my first segment, right? My universe is still in alignment, okay? So I'm just going to share this with you guys for a second. So as you guys know, I've been making some bets, right? And this weekend, I put a little bit of money on the under. I bet $200, right, to win $111.11, okay? Now, there's only one reason that I'm bringing this up. I'm not just going to show my slips every time, because nobody likes a bragger, right? And I don't want to be a bragger. But last time I won $444.44. And I was talking about how, hey, my universe is in alignment. So I got all fours last time, and I told you what that meant, okay? Now I got all ones this time, right? And that means that you're here to start a new stage. Ones in numerology means that everything that you've gone through, that cycle is over with. So now that you've kind of gotten to that next level, you're starting a new cycle, right? So everything's looking good for all of us, man. And the universe is my line. But like I said, I don't want to get too smug, because, karma might smack me with the Canelo versus Bivol fight that's coming up. So I'm trying to get off this, as long as I don't have all ones or any type of consecutive numbers, this will be the last time I show it, but then again, right, it could be like Floyd Mayweather says,
you can't go against God's word. What God wants to be is going to happen. You can't go against God's word. What God wants to be is going to happen.
Yep, that's right. I'll tell you, you guys remember that interview from back in the day with Floyd Mayweather and Brian Kenny?
Yeah, wait. Is that where he called his dad the FAG word?
I don't think so, man. This was it was just after Pacquiao knocked out Hatton, and Floyd Mayweather was announcing his comeback to fight Marquez. And Brian Kenny was grilling him like, well, how come you didn't wait a day and negotiate with Pacquiao? This was when Pacquiao versus Mayweather was just becoming a hot conversation, man. And in hindsight, Floyd made a lot of good points. If you go back and listen to it, he took care of a lot of that work that Brian Kenny was telling him to take care of, like Shane Mosley and all these other people, man. So, shout out to Floyd Mayweather, So we'll see how things go. But I want to move on, man. And before we do that, I got one more thing to talk about. I want to page Team Batman Boxing. He joins us in the chat every once in a while. And last December, the Al Chile crew was active, dude, and we were doing a little bit of a raffle to honor the Canelo lottery. And I said that I would hook somebody up with a pay-per-view if they picked the right opponent. Team Batman Boxing came in early and snagged Bivol, which I was a little surprised about, but he was available. And, man, I'd be happy to pay for his pay-per-view. And if he's going to jack the stream, well, then he could use that money for pizza or whatever he wants. Lo que sea. All right. And so if anybody sees Team Batman Boxing, you can let him know that I'm looking for him. JC, what's happening, man? A-Rod.
Oh,
nice to see you, brother. All right.
What a lucky dude.
He's lucky, man. All he had to do was sit back. I was wondering if he'd kind of start coming around being like, what's up, Chicano? Like, what's going on? But I haven't seen him in a few episodes, you know what I mean? So I wanted to reach out to him. I wasn't trying to make him sweat, but I did want to wait a little bit, just to make sure the fight did go down.
And lucky for Batman, the pay-per-views over there are only like $10, huh? Lucky for you too, I guess. Chicano.
Is that right? Is he in Britain? Don't
kidding,
tease me, man.
But he is in
UK
Britain,
for real?
I think he's UK though. Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm gonna have to confirm that one. And the JC says, yeah, it is nice, man. I'm not sure if you were in it, JC. All I did was look at the winner, man. But I think you were in there. Steele says, salute from Nebraska. Nice to see you, man. Well, dude, let's get into it, dude. We got a lot of shit to talk about. And the first thing I want to cover with you fellas is Tyson Fury winning against Dillian White. And it looks like he might be leaving the sport. So I want to just kind of go through some slides while we talk about what we think about what happened over the weekend, his legacy in general, if he leaves it now, and if he's left some unfinished business on the table. Nopal, let's start with you, brother. What do you think about all this?
Oh man, I'm glad you started with me, man. You know what? Let me George go first. Go ahead, George, because I got some shit to say, man.
George might have a baby he's dealing with, man. Why don't you go ahead and head
Oh,
first, man? And you know
okay.
what? You can rant all you
Okay,
want, brother.
ask that again. Ask that again, Chicano, real quick.
Of course, man. Well, I want to know how you feel about Tyson Fury, his win over the weekend, if you like. We know that he dominated Dillian White, but more specifically, how do you feel about his legacy? And then also, is he leaving with some unfinished business? And before we do that, I just want to welcome Sean Gringo Hicks to the panel. You know what? And Nopal, I got to say, I was listening to Long Live Boxing. I think Sean might resonate with what you have to say anyways, man. So why don't you get it going?
What's up, brothers,
right.
man? Oh, go ahead, no, Paul. Didn't mean to interrupt, brother. I continue to
Hey,
be
what's
rude no
up?
matter what. Consistent.
No, you're never rude, man.
Yeah,
man.
that's right.
You
Because we
guys
know
don't
your
know
intentions
Sean.
are good, man. You have good intentions, so you ain't rude, brother. Welcome.
Thank you very much, man. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for everybody that's tuning in. Appreciate you guys, whether you're tuning in live or on the archive. But yeah, Tyson Fury, man, props to him, the world's greatest fighter of the moment. According to everybody else. Everybody else is just drinking the Kool-Aid, man. And
Damn. Okay, well, you know what, Nopal, you want George to go first on this because he was cooking on Long Live Boxing, man, and I was sitting here listening to it, and all we could do is give it to you guys El Chile. So, Sean, why don't you start us off, man? Tell us your thoughts.
Well, yeah, thanks so much for joining in. I'll be on for just a few minutes, but I just wanted to chime in and say that, I think people have it, confused. I do appreciate what he's done. And, an accomplishment is just that, an accomplishment. But you have to look at the full body of work. And I think that's kind of where the disconnect lies for me, and I'm not even going to the whole, how would he do in this era or anything like that. But if you just look at the full body of accomplishments and look at his resume, I just don't like the whole just giving somebody a pass as far as fantasy. Like the Klitschko, obviously, but Klitschko clearly out of his prime, but he did get the win, so I don't want to take that away from him. The 3 fights against Wilder, and if things were to shake out, and let's say that Tyson Fury were to, retire, we can say what we want, but Wilder, the bomb squad, he comes in shape, and he does have Thor's hammer in his hand, and with his mind right. And I think, if he actually does put his punches together, he could cause some problems. He could potentially, but, we'll see. But that is still an accomplishment beating them. Dillian White, nah, man, I can't get too high for that. And if anything, what I took away from it is that there's a big difference between knowledgeable and passionate. Like, I think too often that gets put together for boxing fans and UK fans. You guys are clearly passionate, but man, you guys had your fan goggles way too thick and needed to wash them off, man, because you've been clamoring for that fight for years, and we did not need to see that. We, as in Gringos US, were saying that this fight was not really needed, but I know it's about a war of attrition, and he did win the fights he needed to win. Even though he, got slept by Povetkin, he avenged that loss. So again, even props to Dillian White. But as far as the man right now, as far as his legacy, to me, to cement the legacy that he's talking about of being, the king of all men and things like that, he has to go undisputed for me. I mean, for me, I'll just go ahead and say, real quickly, if you just take the names away, just, insert any fighter. If you have Tyson Fury with the table set, and a lot of people, even myself, think that he will definitely beat AJ, Anthony Joshua, no question. And that'd be a crazy lucrative fight. But for whatever reason, maybe because the Steve Cunningham aspect, and that was kind of his most difficult fight, which he even said after his first fight with Deontay Wilder on on a podcast. So where he was talking about, the challenges of fighting somebody that size, and he just couldn't outbox. There's a reason why he said that, because, it's true. So I think in the back of his mind, whether he portrays one thing or the other, as far as being, just this crazy entertainer, like my brother Manny saying he's just so entertaining. A lot of that is show, but he has an opportunity where he could be undisputed. And if he doesn't take that fight, and I don't want to, I can't crown him being king when Usyk has 3 of the crowns. You know what I mean? It sounds crazy. I mean, I know that we got the Canelo cartel, and shout out to them for being on here. Anybody in the chat, could you imagine, right? If Canelo has an opportunity, we'll just make it where it hits home. Canelo has an opportunity where, because he said recently what he wants to do in boxing, he just put it out there. Fuck it, Jingon. I want to go ahead and be the man at 175. If he has the opportunity where he beats Bivol in 2 weeks, right? He beats Bivol. And then let's say later on in the summer, the winner of Joe Smith, Beterbiev, whoever, that fight is all set. And then Canelo retires. Oh yeah, he's been there, he's done it, he's the man. And I know it's apples and oranges because Canelo's accomplished so much more. I'm just talking about that feeling though of being incomplete. Like, why would you leave so much meat on the bone? And then you take the where a guy like Tyson Fury, who doesn't have as deep of a resume, and to me, I think it's even more so that he needs to go ahead and complete the journey. So I know people say, "Oh, he would definitely win. He's so big," and I need to see it. And I think this boxing in general, we need to get away from the giving people a pass, as far as like they can just show up, and this is not fantasy boxing, fantasy football. Like you just write a name down and a name beats somebody based off of, performance, what may or could have not or could have should have happened. This is, prize fighting, so I need to see it. If there's even a 5% chance that one of the other guys can win, I need to see it, So if you guys want to go ahead and say he's the greatest of the generation, or, he just changed your life and, he's the greatest entertainer of all time. He's Ringling Brothers, Muhammad Ali rolled into one. He walks on water. That's you. I don't know about you, but I like to watch fights. So I'm not just giving this guy some fucking greatest of all time for something that, I know he'll win. I need to see it point blank. So last time I checked, we're fight fans, not fantasy fans. That's all I got.
Ooh, damn, Sean. And it looks like JC and Nando are co-signing that fire, man. Well, Nopal, what do you think about what Gringo has to say, brother?
Got to start by saying I don't agree with anything that he just said right now. And second of all, how dare you bring up Canelo, Gringo? Nah, I'm just kidding, Gringo. I actually, with everything that Gringo just said, man, I mean, he didn't leave much meat on the bone for anybody else to say, and I agree with everything, absolutely. And I just wanted, the only thing, other comparison I had is, when you look at Canelo's career, I think that, it's easy for me. This would be like Canelo after like Fielding saying, "Hey, I'm ready to retire, guys, because there's nothing left to prove," after beating Rocky Fielding. And, that was just a kind of like the beginning to his career and his when he really started proving stuff, right after the Triple G fight. I mean, so, just imagine if Canelo would have said that, they would have been all over him, criticizing him, and that's, I like these Canelo comparisons because they allow us to kind of like show people how easy they're letting certain fighters get off the hook with stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, because I see a lot of people online saying, yeah, he's the best of this generation. Well, how long has the generation been anyways? You know what I mean? Because there's other fighters doing some good stuff. And, if I do got to say some good stuff about Tyson Fury, what I do admire from him is, I mean, he's not necessarily the type of boxer that says, hey, I'm going to rack up a bunch of title defenses, that sort of stuff. It kind of seemed like out of the good boxers that were around his time, he tried to face them, but it's not looking good right now when you got a guy that potentially could beat everybody that he beat, and maybe in a even better fashion, that in Usyk, you know what I mean? So it doesn't look good that right when there's a guy that's barely coming up and that could be better than you decide to start saying that you're ready to retire. I mean, it doesn't look good at all because, it's starting to look like you're trying to avoid that fight or something like that. So that's not good. And you cannot retire best of this generation without fighting Usyk. And even if you beat him, I mean, it still doesn't look like, we're asking enough of the heavyweight division. You know what I mean?
Hey, man, that was some good stuff, Nopal and Sean, dude. Like, the only thing that I'd like to add to that is I do kind of see things your way in general, but I'm more of a lenio guy when just it comes to like, what a fighter should be doing. To me, it's lenio, and then the belts, are secondary, in my opinion. Like, I always thought that after the Klitschko fight, Fury, he established himself as the best until somebody said different. I said that leading up into the Wilder fight, even though I picked Wilder, I saw Fury as the lineal champ. And then I thought, well, even if you don't see him as the lineal champ, like if he beats Wilder based on the timeline, that definitely would have made him the lineal champ if you kind of go based on who was the champ and who was the man to see next. I felt like Wilder was that natural guy, and I've been watching Fury for a long time, dude. I remember back in the day in like the boxing scene message boards, it was almost like he was kind of like a meme, like when he uppercutted himself. Bam! Right. So, I mean, I remember that, dude, and everybody was talking about the great Tyson Fury back then. So it was kind of like a joke. At least that's the way I took it when I was reading it. So, I've been following him since then, and then he goes on to beat Klitschko. One of the things that I don't like is just like Sean is saying, I don't like that the way that they're already spinning his legacy, because if you ask me, like this whole concept of like, oh, he would have been the best, he would have beat everybody. I'm like, well, he already had tough fights in his own career, even towards the end, like when he fought Otto Wallin, like, he lost rounds to this dude, but for some reason he can just fight anybody because he's so damn big. Well, there are other big heavyweights all over the place too. Like, and if you ask me, and I've always said this, like Vladimir Klitschko is like maybe only a couple inches shorter. It's pretty much the same height in my opinion. And I'll say this, like, everybody likes to act like Tyson Fury just dominated Klitschko. I didn't see it that way. I thought that fight was actually pretty close. And we're talking about a past prime Vladimir Klitschko. And then now that we have like a 34-year-old Tyson Fury, I'm hearing like, oh, well, if only he had a good trainer earlier, then he really would have been something. It's like, well, that's fantasy land. Like Tyson Fury was built up properly. He had good fundamentals going into like any other new trainer that he went to already. He built on himself, and he has his own ring IQ and knows what to do. Yeah, maybe Sugar Hill has that type of coaching style to where like they're going to get aggressive, and that suited Tyson Fury for the remainder of his career as he goes into his later 30s and starts setting his feet a little bit more, not being able to move around. But as far as him being like an all-time great, I would need to know a little bit more about like heavyweight history in general to truly say that. Is he the best fighter of this generation in the heavyweight division? I think that if he did retire now, I think that you might have to say that, but I also would feel robbed if he left now. Like I do feel like his legacy is a bit incomplete. And some of it's not his fault. Like, I think the second Wilder fight was stalled for a while, and then they had to have a third, right? So he did what he had to do. I could see him also just being like outside of boxing, just kind of like losing interest in boxing in general. Like if he doesn't have that passion anymore to do it, or he is 34, like he says, if he says, hey man, like I can't get much better, like I'm going to start slowing down. There's only one way to go, which is downhill. If he wants to leave on his own terms and he does it right now, like, yeah, it'll leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. I will say that. George, what do you think, man?
Yeah, no, everybody, great points. It took me a little while to get on board with Tyson Fury. I think for me, his introduction to me was against Cunningham, and I think everybody wanted to see how he was going to do. I think that was maybe I'm trying to go offhand right here. I want to say, yeah, that was kind of like the introduction, and Cunningham was kind of already like I think maybe like on his way out as well. I think even coming up from like cruiserweight, and then you seen Cunningham drop him, which was pretty shocking to see, and yeah, Tyson Fury reacted the way you wanted a good fighter to react when facing adversity. He got up and won the rest of the fight. But as far as legacy, right now, I think it's too soon, and I think I think like the legacy usually comes in like maybe like a year or two after they retire. That's when you really start to look back and be like, wow, you know what? He faced this guy, he faced that guy, he beat this guy at that time. But I think as of now, yeah, he is top 5 heavyweight. I think we definitely want to see him against Usyk and against Joshua. And I think depending on how I don't think he retires. I think he's just running. I think he's just, I think he's just stirring up a little bit, just trying to make people, think, well, hey, Tyson Fury retires. He's not going to retire. I mean, there's still too much. I think he, in his mind, he probably knows too that there's still a little bit left to cement his legacy. And I think if he does get the Usyk and Joshua, I think that would be the one for him.
Hey, that's a good point. And Nando here adds to that, saying he's not trying to be racist, but gypsies are the original carnies. Fury just playing mental games with that retirement talk. Not happening. Sean, what do you think, man? I mean, do you think he's really going to retire, or like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, thank you very much, and good points, George. Man, no, Paul, you bring it always, brother. But I think it's strategic, man. I think when he had the guy from the MMA in there and talking about that, about having an exhibition bout, I think that's all mind games. But I really do think that Joshua and Usyk too plays a big part in his decision making. Even if you look at the thumbnail and you see in the middle, it's just like right here. Fury talking a good game, screaming, looking crazy, but on the background, he knows that he's a troubled king. He's really got some questionable things, and the thing that's questioning him is like, can I really beat the real king? The guy who really holds the belts right now is Usyk. And the winner of that, because I propose, since everybody's playing the what if game and woulda, coulda, shoulda, what Fury is going to be in playing chess with these fighters not even actually engaging one another. How about this one? Think about this, since we're talking legacy. What if Wilder's not the second best heavyweight right now? I know that on paper, everybody's saying like the head movement and everything, and I've said it too. What if, as crazy as it sounds, what if the second best heavyweight is either Usyk or Joshua? What if Wilder's just the fourth best heavyweight? Then doesn't his legacy change? You fought him 3 times, right? And he knocks you down 4. Granted, you dominated 2 of those fights, but still, my point is, the guys have to fight, and I think that fight is going to play a big part in his decision making. I do believe that he's a showman, but I think that he likes to control what he feels he can control, and he can control his own narrative. I'll give him that. So I'm not falling for it, and I don't think it's not over till it's over. So I think that if Joshua wins, he's definitely not retired. There's no way. I think if Usyk wins, he'll be retired. That's how I look at it.
All right. So, if Tyson Fury faces the winner of Joshua versus Usyk, even though maybe even if they split those fights, you'd be okay with him fighting the winner and then riding off into the sunset?
Absolutely. Because to me, have a little bit more clarity. I mean, because for one, you have undisputed, which I think is we've learned more as in this 4-belt era. That's the only thing that really matters. I mean, there's so many title holders, but not true champions. When you're undisputed, you're truly a champion, and we have clarity, which we've been seeking for, and what's better for the sport and for our sport to have, a true vision, true, pinnacle, something to look forward to. So undisputed is it. It's kind of like the new cachet word for us fight fans, right? So why rob us that? So I know that's something he wants too. Lineal is important, but undisputed is like another level. And I think that's something, especially 4-belt era, then you get to a point where, you can't refute it. So that's my thing. Like if he leaves meat on the bone, disappointing, but at least fighting the winner of Joshua Usyk 2, give us that undisputed, then we know for sure, because again, even though I'm high on Wilder and I think he can create a lot of damage and to be pure pandemonium, because the parity as far as like you'd have in the heavyweight division, if you have Tyson Fury leave, there's no guarantee. Nobody knows for sure, and that's why we want them to fight. It is heavyweight division, especially once you're the chin is cracked, like our man Run PMC always says. Fighters change, and at the last 2 fights, man, Wilder took a beating. You know what I mean? So who knows what he would be if he goes back in the ring? So we talk crazy about Joshua, whatever, but maybe Joshua could beat him. Maybe Usyk could beat him. Maybe even Andy Ruiz. No. So, but we just want to see the fights, and that's what I'm saying. So, I think it's fool's gold, and he's not fooling me.
Okay,
Yeah,
so Sean, can I ask you a question, brother?
Yeah.
There's fighters I don't like. So, I mean, would you say you're like a Tyson Fury hater, or do you think you just call it how you see it? I'm just curious.
No. Actually, I like Tyson Fury, but it's leaving a bad taste in my mouth. And I think I get accused of being a Terrence Crawford hater too. But there's a difference between being appreciated and being a fan, and also disliking a fan base. So there's like a new fan base that's been generated. Basically, they're in the moment and he's the greatest ever. He's an entertainer. He can go out right now and be one of the most, historically revered heavyweights of all time. No, I'm not ready to do that. So I'm not ready to fall for narrative, so that's kind of where I see it going. I do appreciate him, and I appreciate what he's done for the sport, and there's some positives there. But if he walks away now, I don't say it's selfish. He's doing what he feels is best for him. But selfishly from my sport, if he's truly about being a fighting man like he calls himself, he needs to go undisputed, irregardless of the winner. But I think the winner does play a part in his decision, and that's ignorant on my part, but his history has kind of shown that, he disappears and reappears when things kind of clear up for him.
Yeah, and the meat on the bones, right, is as a couple of years ago, it was Fury, Joshua, and Tyson. Fury fought Wilder twice, and how many times were they supposed to make those fights with Joshua? Either if it was Fury and Joshua or Wilder and Joshua, and Joshua loses, so it kind of throws off everything. But out of it, we got a great trilogy and a great third fight between Wilder and Fury. So yes, we do want to see him fight the winner because, like you said, he is a great entertainer. That I cannot take that away from him. But if he was to retire now, if Usyk was the win, I mean, that would piss me off because we want to see. Right now, there's those are pretty much like the 4 best heavyweights right now, and whoever's fifth is fifth. But we want to see Tyson Fury fight either Usyk or Joshua. We know that right there, I think, would cement anybody's legacy, right? I mean, maybe Joshua beats Usyk, right? Joshua beats Tyson. Does that bring Wilder out of the equation? Does that bring Wilder out a little bit from retirement? Does he say, "Hey, you know what? I got a chance," or is there? I don't know. It's just so many. I think there's so many options right there at the heavyweight division. And I would say whoever was to win like this little mini tournament that we have inside our head between the heavyweights, we could say, these were probably the best heavyweights of this generation. And, you throw Usyk in there, you see exactly what he does. I mean, the skills speak for himself. So, I mean, honestly, I don't really think Fury's going to retire. Like you said, he's just playing mind games. He's doing what he does. He's going to make a little money on the side. I don't know if they'll make that fight with the UFC fighter Ngannou. Or what, maybe just bringing him on to entertain because, that's what Tyson Fury does. He's a great entertainer, but let's see what happens, man. I don't want to see him retire. I want to see him fight the winner of Usyk and Joshua, no matter who it is. And then I think that would determine, who's, I guess of this generation or this era right now of the heavyweights, who's the best heavyweight. Because he did fight Klitschko a little bit. Klitschko was on this terror, right? He's beating everybody. He didn't dominate Klitschko. He just, that he uses tactics. You see some of the tactics that he uses now, like, a little holding, punching to the body, but he just wore Klitschko down and he beat Klitschko.
Yeah, and I respected Klitschko's reign as and I never said that he was like, oh, this guy's one of the greatest, but I always said he kept the heavyweight division honest, him and his brother, right? But it wasn't like he was like this guy. I'm like, oh, you put Klitschko in any era and he's going to dominate. I never said anything like that. I have a lot of respect for the Klitschkos, but Vladimir, I mean, he won some rounds against Fury, I think.
Yeah, you know what? That should be a good fight for us to go back and rewatch because you're right. It's almost like people hated Klitschko so much that they wanted him to lose at all costs. So, when you have that over yourself going into a fight, it's kind of hard not to just try to win by knockout. That's almost like the only way that you can win that fight, and people wanted to get Klitschko out of the way so much that I do believe that we should go back and revisit that fight, because maybe he wasn't given the A-side treatment enough to just pull it off. You know what I mean? And I think it might have been closer to a draw, to be honest. But I do want to say that this is very encouraging to see us basically stopping the narrative, or because there's a lot of people saying that, oh yeah, he could retire right now and be the best of this generation, and yeah, that's pure BS right there. And I'm glad that we're putting a stop to it on our side.
Yep.
Damn. Well, hey, Sean, I know you got to get rolling, but I want to thank you so much for joining us. I know that you have a midweek show where you're gonna have your predictions for this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do a show after the round table on Thursday. Definitely check us out, and we love you guys to come on through. And we're just gonna be talking about, obviously, that's a big weekend. I mean, if you think about it, just like in your mind, and that's the thing when Chicano, when you were asking, am I not a fan of Fury? I'm just not a fan of the narratives being spun right now and like how he's acting. But the fighter, I mean, I appreciate the fighter, but I do have a lot of excitement for right now as far as boxing. Obviously, you have Taylor Serrano. You have Valdez versus Stevenson, and yes, that's the fight I definitely want to see. Both are very important and have great impact on the sport. Then you have obviously, Canelo Cartel in the house. You have Canelo versus Bivol. Not a guaranteed fight, by the way. I know you guys are confident as hell. I mean, I see
that's not
Daniel
true. That's
Paul.
not true.
No,
Paul's not worried at all. George, I know you, brother. You're confident as hell. But no, it's going to be a tough fight, man. And then you back it up with, come on, man, everybody's favorite Charlo, little Charlo going against Castano, which that's a close fight too, man. So what a stretch. I mean, you got another 16 weeks of just great fights, but this next 3 weeks is going to be just el fuego, man. But no, seriously, guys, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support, and make sure to support Al Chile. They're talking that real boxing talk, and man, gotta love it, man. Show them some love. They'll give you some great boxing knowledge, and I appreciate it, guys. I'm out.
All right, Sean.
All right, thanks, Sean. That was the one and only Sean Gringo Hicks, man, chiming in, and long live boxing. Great show, dude. Manny and Hopper, dude, those guys have such chemistry, dude. I love hearing what they have to say. In fact, I think their last episode was my favorite. Those guys were really cooking, man. And then they got sucked into Spence versus Crawford. They couldn't help themselves. They're like, let's not talk about it. And then for some reason, they just started talking about it and they couldn't stop. It was hilarious. But, Sean's right about this, dude. Like, the narratives are out of control right now, so the best thing you can do is either laugh at it or tune it out, man. You can't let it get to you. But yeah, dude, narratives are running wild, and I want to talk about one of the narratives that was running wild a few months back. I think this was right before the beginning of this year, and this is in regards to Valdez versus Concecaio. Now, we are doing our rescore of Valdez versus Concecaio, and I thought it was appropriate for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of people were saying this was a robbery. Another thing is that I noticed that people really didn't like talking about the rounds of this particular fight. They simply didn't. And Valdez is fighting this weekend, man. So, it was another opportunity for me to be able to look at film and kind of killing two birds with one stone, man. So we're going to get into it. Valdez versus Concecaio. No, Paul, how'd you see this fight, man?
I saw it was a pretty good fight. I noticed that Concecaio kind of switched up his style a couple times, and that doesn't do you any favors. You know what I mean? You're going to fight one way and then just completely abandon that later on. So basically, I gave Valdez the first round. I thought he did a little better than Concecaio. Got to say, though, Concecaio has a nice fighting flow, Then I gave Valdez round 6, 7, 8, and 9, and also the 12th round. So I had this fight a draw, but I totally understand how they gave the fight to Valdez. I think the HBO crew had it 7-5 Valdez. I was trying to be a little more fair to Concecaio, but given the circumstances, you can't be doing that sort of thing, kind of like switching your style that way and kind of, it looked like at points he didn't want to engage at all, and Valdez was kind of like at a disadvantage because Concecaio has a larger dimension, so he establishes his distance, what distance he needed to be, where basically Valdez was having to lunge in, and I saw Reynoso was telling Valdez, no, don't lunge in, be patient, and yeah, it was kind of a hard fight for Valdez, but I had it a draw.
All right, so certainly not a robbery in your opinion.
No, absolutely not.
All right, so we have one for a draw with no robbery. George with Off the Ropes Boxing MMA. And dude, please set the table, man. You went to this fight. You were hanging out in Tucson,
Yeah, yes, I was, man.
Yeah, dude, at an amphitheater, right? I mean, tell us about the seating. Tell us about the environment. Did people lose it when Canelo showed up? Tell us about the experience. And how you scored it.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Experience-wise, I mean, we got there early. We got there when the first fight started. We got there. We took my dad, me and my brothers, Julian, of course, my partner from Off the Ropes. We all decided to go. It's September. It's hotter than shit in Tucson. It's like 105 to 101 is like the average you see in September. But just know that the next month the temperature starts to drop down into the high 90s. So it's still hot as hell. So we're watching the first fight. Beer's flowing. The weather's good. I mean, man, it's an experience that I won't forget. And not to get too personal on here, but this was definitely, it was a little more personal for me because yes, it was like it was my dad's last moment with his sons, enjoying the fight. And we all talked about looking forward to go seeing Canelo live, hoping that would happen, but that never got the chance to happen, man. But what second best to Canelo, I think, would be Oscar Valdez. So we have pictures of my dad, I posted them and stuff. And then as soon as Canelo showed up, man, it was absolutely crazy. But everybody was expecting Canelo to interact with the crowd, but I think he was more he probably got dropped off, in an unmarked car backstage. And then they brought him up, through the back. He came in and you could hear the crowd going crazy. I even have like a small video. I might send you guys a little bit later, but I'm from where I was standing and you can see Canelo sitting there next to Bob Arum. And then Frank Sanchez was in the crowd there next to him. But man, it was a great experience. We're standing right there by where the fighters come out of. You can see Concecaio, Oscar Valdez. You can see the intensity. Their focus was so razor sharp. They weren't even worried about anybody yelling obscenities to them. And it was pretty funny because I was going back watching videos and you could hear like the guys yelling at Robinson Concecaio, Mexico, and unfazed, man. It was absolutely funny. But fighters, they got to know how to tune out that kind of that outside noise. But once the fight started, I think I watched maybe live, like maybe like 2-3 rounds, but it was just almost impossible to watch a fight comfortably like how you do at home when you're watching it either on your TV or your tablet or your computer or wherever you watch live fights from. So it was a little harder. So I just took it in as an experience being there live, like, hell yeah, this is cool. I'm with my dad, my brothers, my friends, drinking beers, badass, awesome scene. And then once the fight was over, I mean, the atmosphere of the crowd was they were kind of mixed. They were like, oh, I think Concecaio won this. And they were like, oh, it was a draw. And then once I was hearing most of that as the argument, I'm like, man, I don't even want to go back and watch this. So I know when we've talked about wanting to score this, I was like, man, this is a fight I don't want to go back and watch and score because I don't want to disappoint myself. But I finally got to score yesterday. I did not disappoint myself. So when you're actually, when you're watching a fight the second time, like, I don't know how this for you guys, but when you're watching a fight live, like I get like this nervous energy, like I get like anxious and, I get a little anxiety.
I love that feeling.
Yeah, man. Right. It's not just me, right?
Oh, it's great. That's when you know that your fighter's really in for a tough fight. When you're like,
yeah,
shit,
so that's the way it
was.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Oh shit, here we go. We get excited. Me and my brother start turning up the TV louder. But I watched it comfortably on my computer with my headphones, man. And I already expected the outcome, what everybody was saying, that Concecaio won. But when I actually got to rescore this, right off the bat, round one was a swing round for me. And I actually gave that one to Concecaio. I felt like he landed some of the better punches as he did like in the early 5-6 rounds. But the first 2 rounds went to Concecaio, with round one being the swing round. And then I gave Valdez the 3rd round. And the 4th round was another swing round, which I gave to Robinson, which the next 2-3 rounds were swing rounds, but 4 and 5 I gave to Robinson. Valdez I gave 6. And then from 6 to about 9 to when the point was deducted, they were all Valdez rounds. So I know we had, not saying that we had an issue, but we were trying to figure out how we would score, rounds like that. So in the point taken, I still felt like Robinson maybe won that round. So if you don't take the point away from Concecaio, I felt like Concecaio would have won that round. But officially, like, I had to give that round to Valdez. But yeah, you can see Concecaio starts to change the pace in his fight. Like, I don't know if it was he took a couple of shots from Valdez, or he felt the pressure of Valdez, or he got comfortable and thought he could cruise the rest of the fight. But he definitely didn't win the first 6 or 7 rounds. By he didn't win every single one of those rounds. So there was a couple of rounds that Valdez won, but I had to give Valdez that 9th round officially because of the point taken away. Even though it was not a fair point taken, it wasn't like Concecaio was warned. It wasn't like it was a brutal punch. Yeah, he gave him a couple of taps in the head, and you see fighters do it all the time. They either tap each other on the back, on their butt, on the back of the head. But I don't know. I don't think it was fair. And then I gave Concecaio 10, and then Valdez 11 and 12. So at the end of it, I guess HBO had it 7-5, and that's what I had it 7-5 as well. 115, 113 for Valdez. Was not a robbery. I can see why people thought maybe Concecaio won this, because you're watching it, all the emotions in it, because Valdez is testing dirty for fentanyl. Me and Julian did an episode on it. You had Timothy Bradley, Andre Ward, everybody just yeah, they were upset, because it is a sport, of violence, of combat. Like, you want to make sure everybody is clean. You don't want any kind of edge. But as far as fentanyl, it's not an enhancement. It's more of like a diuretic. I used to take it back in the day, when I was a little chubbier. It used to help me lose weight, and the only thing you got from it was insomnia. You didn't really get to sleep that much, because you was like I don't know, you were up all night. It's an amphetamine. But so there was no edge for that. But I watched the interview yesterday with Valdez finally like speaking, and I sent it to you guys in the chat, or I sent it in the group text. You guys take a look at it. It's pretty good. But back to the scoring, man. I had it Valdez 7-5.
All right, thanks very much. That was George with Off the Ropes Boxing, man. Dude, that was great laying it out, what it was like in that environment. It looks like it was happening, man. When I was watching that fight, I was like, man, I want to be over there with the homies, And I know George, he's got himself a woman right now, but I'm not trying to speak for him, but I'm sure there was a sea of beautiful chiquitas with hoop earrings everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yes.
See, I'm telling you, man. I've been to Tucson a few times. I know what's up, man. All right, and Nando has a differing opinion here. He says Concecaio should have won that fight, but he got cocky and let him off the hook, like Dennis Green likes to say. Well, hey, man, I thoroughly enjoyed this fight myself. It was fun to go back and watch, because, I think my perception was a little different in real time. Like, when I watched it, I don't know if it was because of the phenomenal showing that Valdez had against Burchell, but I don't know. I think my expectations of Valdez were a bit high going into this fight. I thought that he was going to go in there and just handle business. It was his homecoming. But when I watched the fight, in real time, like, I had Concecaio winning this fight. Going back and watching it, with more clear eyes and not having any expectations of either fighter, it was fun to go back and watch, and I was worried for Valdez early as far as like him possibly winning this fight. And I didn't really want to call it a robbery, but watching the early rounds, I felt like Concecaio was in control. He did a good job of establishing the range, did a good job of punching a lot. Like, to me, you need to, if you're going to factor in like power and volume, like, you might have Valdez winning this fight if there is a factor that you give towards power versus volume. And in this fight, I felt like Concecaio was stiffly attacking Valdez very early, and I gave Concecaio the first 4 rounds, although I think you could make an argument for Valdez winning the 3rd round. But then, Valdez really started to come on, started to find his own range and started to connect more with bigger shots, more thudding shots. On top of that, too, I felt like Concecaio started running at certain points, and maybe not running so much, but avoiding his defensive responsibility by staying out of the pocket for amounts of time. And that can always offset a real even round. If some guy's not engaging and the round's pretty even and the guy's not even willing to at least engage, like, then I think that counts against you. And so I ended up giving Valdez round 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I also gave him rounds 10, 11, and 12. So I had Valdez winning this fight 7-5 plus that point deduction. So to me, Valdez did win this fight. There's no controversy in my opinion. I think that it's fair to give Valdez this fight. Valdez made a very good account of himself and was at least trying. And I had some different perceptions too watching it this time around. Like, I remember thinking back on this fight and thinking about how helpless Valdez would act when Concecaio tied him up. And I thought, okay, well, that's going to be a factor in the Shakur Stevenson fight. But, looking back on it, when I watched it, I felt like the ref was breaking them up way too early. And Andre Ward did mention that towards the end. In fact, I thought the commentating was actually pretty good. Like, I'm usually not a fan of Bradley and Ward trying to like trip over themselves and just, try to say these real poignant things. And, but I thought that their commentary on how things were going in the ring was pretty right on. Like, I think that Concecaio, I don't know if he necessarily let Valdez in the fight, but Valdez earned his way into the fight and started to take control. And there are some swing rounds in my opinion. I had round 5 a swing round, round 7, 9, and 10 were swing rounds. But I had Valdez winning this fight. I feel good about Valdez winning. As far as the scandal goes about it being a robbery, like I said, I think perhaps people's expectations were a bit too high at the time and expected Valdez just to go in there and just handle business. And he didn't really handle business in that fashion. So that's what I got. Does anybody have anything to add on this great fight before we move on to our next subject?
No, I think that was great points, man.
All right. Well, hey, man, salute to Valdez for winning this fight. And we're going to get into Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez, man, because it's fight week, baby. Let's get into it. I'm really excited about this one. This is the second time that, well, actually, I guess the third time, Valdez is going on a string of fighting undefeated fighters, man. So this one is 2 undefeated fighters in their prime going at it on the 30th for the Junior Lightweight Championship this weekend at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. So this is going to be one hell of a fight. We've been waiting for this fight. George, tell us how you see this fight, man, and who you have winning.
This is a tough one for me. It's another one of those ones, you really aren't sure how you want to score it. But I saw the interview yesterday with Valdez and Shakur. Shakur was accusing Valdez of ducking, saying that they wanted that Valdez was calling out Navarrete, but Valdez put that to rest and said it wasn't him that was calling for it. It was the management and the team, or Bob Arum was the one that was calling for the Navarrete fight, and it was actually Reynoso and team their camp that wanted the Shakur fight.
Oh, looks.
Yeah. No, sorry about that. Yeah. Go ahead.
It looks like George has some fathering duty, so we're going to let him finish up his thoughts here in a little bit. No, Paul, what do you think about this fight, brother?
Well, it's a very good fight. And I just wanted to finish off where George was saying, and at no moment did I ever think that Valdez was ducking Shakur. A lot of times, other fighters make it seem like, everything revolves around them, and it's not true. You know what I mean? I think that the Navarrete fight might actually even be more dangerous than the Shakur fight. So even if that would have been true, that he wanted the Navarrete, which obviously he cleared that up, I don't see no harm in that, and fighters got to do what's best in their interest, and this is a great fight, and notoriously, I mean, also I have noticed that it's not easy to deal with Shakur Stevenson's management and all them, because they price themselves out of a lot of stuff. So I think that maybe that happened to be an issue right there. Maybe they couldn't get to some kind of agreement. I could see Stevenson and his team wanting a bunch of money to get this fight. You know what I mean? So I think that I don't believe that he was ducking him at any point. And I think that it is a good fight. I would have to say that I slightly favor Stevenson, maybe like 55-45, maybe closer to a 60. But I'm confident, and hopefully Valdez and his team got a good plan, to see what they can do. And I'm still rooting for Valdez on this one.
Man, that's good stuff. Well, Mad Dog H is in the house, man. He's saluting all of us, dude. Thank you so much for joining us, brother. And Nando here says that a lot of folks are already writing off Valdez. Come on. George, are you back, brother, or should I get rolling on my take? Well, I guess that's me, man. Well, dude, I'm looking forward to this fight. And what I want to do is take a quick little look at the odds before I get rolling here. So this dude, I'm telling you, dude, we've seen, and this is like the 3rd consecutive week where we've had big fights where the underdog, who's a big B-side name, has almost been a 5-1 underdog. So, I mean, if you think Valdez could possibly pull it off and it's like, 50-50 and you're maybe a better man, you ought to get it going. And maybe, I don't know, it's up to you. If you don't like to bet, that's fine. But if you like to bet, I mean, these are some sweet little odds, and the odds are also telling you that they think that the over is going to hit. So they think this one's going to go to decision. You could take the under at 10.5 rounds and get 2-1 on your money. I'll tell you, man, I think this is one hell of a good fight. I'm looking forward to it. And watching the Valdez versus Concecaio fight, as well as some Shakur fights, made me think that Valdez actually has a little bit of a better shot than I was giving him credit for. Now, I went on the line early and I said, I don't think Valdez has much of a chance, right? I said that and I believed it, but I think he has a slightly better chance. Like, I don't want to say the guy has no shot, but I think Shakur Stevenson is just so incredibly skilled. And I think he's got a lot of tools, a lot of natural tools that he's going to be able to bring to the table that I just don't think that Valdez will be able to offset on that night. Now, I think Valdez is very good at coming in, and he's very good at being aggressive. He's got a nice aggressive style, but he's not necessarily like a come forward fighter. Like, he likes to pick and choose his spots. I think he has a little bit of an activity problem for being a 130 pounder. I've always said that. Like, he needs to be a little bit more active. And it's not like when he's swinging, he's like this KO artist. Like, he does have power, and sometimes you could tell he has more power than his opponent, but it's not like he's putting him down and all you need is that one punch, and Valdez can win this fight. Although I do think he has a puncher's chance, but I think that Shakur has pretty decent footwork. Like a lot of the counter arguments I was hearing towards people who thought Valdez was going to win, that, well, hey, Shakur doesn't even have the footwork like that. You all are tripping. Like, I think that he does have the footwork to move around. Like, he's very smooth with it. Like, I think he moves around just like Crawford. He's not all over the place, but I mean, he can definitely reposition you. He knows how to back up when you punch. He knows how to fight at long range. He knows how to hit you with the stiff jab to take lead, or he can hit you with like an offsetting jab. He can do a nice cross to the body. Like, I mean, he's so versatile. He can hit, and on top of that too, like, he's got excellent reflexes. And I think that, and it is what it is, I think that he's a bit too athletic and a bit too slick for Valdez. I do think that the early rounds are going to be telling, because, there's that saying in boxing, like, and I used to hear this with Mayweather, like, well, you can't just go and bum rush Mayweather because you're going to play into his hands. And I would always think to myself, well, that is true, but you can't go out there trying to outbox Mayweather either, because you're not going to be able to do that. And that's what I think the situation is here. Like, I think that Valdez is kind of in a tough spot, like, and especially early, because, and Canelo said this, and I think this is their game plan. They're going to try to set something up. And if they're going to set something up, they're going to have to wait some rounds. Like, he can't just go in there and bum rush head first into Shakur. He's going to get tagged and pieced up, right? So it's like, I see those first few rounds kind of being adjustment rounds for Valdez. I think he needs to listen to Reynoso. I think he's kind of dependent on instruction from his corner. Like, I think that Shakur has like fast thinking. He can adjust on his own. I think that Valdez is a bit reliant on kind of learning about what he needs to do and then going in there and doing it. Although I think he's got a lot of good skills in general. So it's not like he's just going to be some bozo who doesn't know how to defend himself or react or counter. He can do all of that stuff really well in general. He's a very good boxer. He deserves to be here. He's a legitimate champion. The legitimate second, or you could rank him number one right now currently if you wanted to, I guess. But if you ask me, it's clear that Shakur has the advantage. When Valdez does make those adjustments in like the middle rounds, I think that's his best opportunity, because I think that Shakur isn't going to let Valdez see anything until the adjustments are made, and then Shakur is going to step up his level. And I think Valdez only has a chance like in those mid to late rounds. And after that, I think he'll start getting worn. And I think that Shakur will just start pulling away. So, I could kind of see this being like, Shakur winning the first half, Valdez maybe winning, 3 rounds, and then Shakur just finishing it up. I see a decision here. I see it possibly like 9-3. That's what I think, 9-3. And I think that Shakur is going to be crowned, and it's going to be a well-earned win. And we're going to be talking about Shakur on the pound for pound list and everything like that. So, George, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think you pretty much have it the way I see it as well, where Valdez will have some success. I do believe Shakur will win this. A good competitive close fight, but I just think Shakur just has too many tools in the bag. I think his footwork is great. He knows his distance. He mentions that he's actually understands boxing more than most guys, that he knows it's obviously that hit to not hit, to hit and not to get hit. And he says that he feels like that's the mistake with a lot of the younger guys, is they don't understand that in boxing. Intelligent young guy, especially for his age. He mentioned that when Valdez won his first fight, his first belt, Shakur was already coming into the pros. So he's always had his eyes set on winning the bout. He's had his eyes set on, I think, since 126 or 122 against Valdez. And back to the point where he thought Valdez was ducking him. He said no, that he never was ducking him. He said no disrespect. He just felt that he wanted to fight the guy that was the right opponent at the right time. So whoever was really hot, and not that Shakur wasn't, gonna be where he is now, but he just felt like the guys he fought along the way were the guys that he should have fought. And he's always known that he was gonna fight Shakur, which right now I think is the best time. Like they're both pretty much. I would say that Shakur probably has a couple more divisions to go up, but this is kind of like the start of Shakur's peak. I think like the start of his prime right here at 130. And he's got a great future ahead of him. But I feel like, yeah, again, Shakur is going to win this, but I think Valdez will surprise a lot of people with how this fight, how he performs. I think I don't think it'll be a complete shutout. I did like what Shakur said, that he said that he doesn't like how the odds have it. He feels like Valdez, it's a much closer fight than what a lot of people however the odds have him. I think Shakur, right? He's the heavy favorite. Is that right, Chicano?
Yeah, 5-1.
Yeah. He says that he doesn't like that. He just says that he thinks that it's a lot closer and that they should put some respect on Valdez's name. So I do like that, But all in all, man, it's a good fight, man. I'm excited for this one. This one I'll definitely will be watching live. I won't try to catch like a rerun later on. I will be at work, but I'll be taking my break around that time. So let's see what happens, man. I know it's a good night. Keyshawn Davis is the co-main event. That one's going to be a really good fight too. So I'm excited.
Me too, man. And I know Valdez is going to bring it, man. And I never thought that he was ducking Shakur. And I saw that conversation, and you're right. He was saying like, hey, man, like I told you I'd fight you. Like, this is no problem, and it might be a little bit ahead of games, but it was nice to see Shakur give Valdez his respect. But I also think that like when Shakur talks like in that cocky manner, like I believe he's just really talking about how he feels about his own intelligence, his own ability, like what he's going to bring to the table. And I think that he's excited to kind of back it all up in the ring, which makes it really exciting. Plus, I love his corner with his grandfather and that other gentleman. Like, I think they got a very good corner as well. Very seasoned, old. They got like an old school feel to me. You know what I mean? Plus, dude, the guy spars with Terrence Crawford, and dude, I mean, if you go back and, listen to some of the commentary of Shakur's fights, and if Crawford's talking about what he sees, man, he just says that, they're in there really, giving and taking and not wanting to give an inch, and that Shakur has just such good reflexes and is so smart. And I believe that when Shakur says, hey, man, I see things that other people don't like, I feel like he's kind of like Floyd Mayweather in that sense, where like his ring IQ is really there. And in a sense, he makes his own adjustments in real time, and he's patient, and his reflexes are so damn good, that, he could just, at this point, he's way faster than Valdez, in my opinion. And I think speed kills. And there's a chance that, there's a chance that Shakur could paint Valdez. Valdez already looked a little jacked up against Concecaio, even though he was starting to pull away towards the end. But Valdez is going to be there to bring it. You know what I mean? And I think
Absolutely.
that also too, like Valdez did have a bad night against Concecaio. Like, it's very easy for boxers or any athletes to have like an off night. And with everything that was going on in the build up to that fight, I could see where, maybe his mind wasn't there. So I do think that Valdez is going to bring a much superior version to himself, of himself, than we saw the last time.
Yeah, I do believe, like you said, that Canelo and Reynoso got something planned out for Valdez. I think they'll come up with a good game plan. For me, at least, I think that Valdez has to go to the body early, man. If I think, and he's a great body puncher. He's a good body puncher. I think if he has any chance, he's gonna have to. I think for me, it's gonna be the body work. I think that's where he's gonna have to get on the inside a little bit. Feint, make Shakur react to his movements, and catch him in between those feints. But I think the body work is key for me in this one. If I was in that camp, but Canelo, Eddie. They always come up with great game plans. So let's see what kind of game plan they got for Valdez.
Hell yeah. And Nando says that Shakur can stink it out at any time. Valdez needs to rack up points early or else. And then JC says, if Valdez loses, he ain't going to take punishment. We'll see, man. I'm looking forward to this fight. Actually, like this is going to be a damn good one. And then Mad Dog H, man, thanks for coming in, brother. And he says Shakur said he's going to break Valdez mentally and make him quit. I don't see that, and that's one of the things when he did say that. Like, I don't know, like how Shakur could possibly think that he's going to make Valdez quit. Like, I do think that there's a chance that he could possibly discourage Valdez, and Valdez he might end up feeling like he doesn't have any answers for Shakur Stevenson. I do see that as being a possibility, like towards the very end of the fight, where it's just, especially if he feels like he's kind of getting embarrassed, like there's a chance that he might not be able to recover mentally from that. And he also might know that he's losing the fight. If he falls behind, he might know he's not going to get any favorable decisions. And that could take a toll. Like, we haven't seen what it's like if Valdez needs to go in and go for a knockout. And we don't know what it's like for Valdez's corner to tell him, like, hey, you need a knockout to win. I don't even know if Reynoso really talks like that, or Valdez's dad. Like, I haven't really heard Reynoso ever tell Canelo or anybody else, like, hey, you need a knockout, go do it. Although I do like when trainers say that, like, because I think that sometimes fighters need to hear that kind of thing to really get going. All right, man. The other thing I want to talk about, dude, is another awesome fight this weekend. Taylor versus Serrano. Now, I don't watch women's boxing too much, man, but I thought it was important that we touch on this. George, man, I'd love it if you could kind of tell us about the stakes, about both fighters, like, and what we can expect in this fight and who you predict to win it.
Yeah, for sure. This is, there's some women boxing. Like, if you follow women's boxing, you obviously know that there's some big ones out there. I feel like this is a big one. And even I think Clarissa Shields even said that she feels this one is just as big as hers between her and Savannah Marshall. I know Serrano is the favorite, and I slightly picked Serrano, but not to take anything away from Katie Taylor. Katie Taylor is definitely tough, but I think Serrano's just her work rate is real high, man, and I think that usually gives a lot of her opponents issues. But towards the end of the fight, you start to see Serrano get a little more vulnerable. She gets hit a little more than she should towards the end. And I don't know if that's fatigue or just throwing too many punches. But I think those would be the moments that Katie Taylor is going to have to capitalize is when Serrano starts to slow down a little bit and shows a little vulnerability. The stakes on this fight, I think, are really high, man. I know a lot of people feel like this one is a little more important than the Shakur Stevenson and Valdez. I hate to choose, man. I hate to choose which one I think is the more popular one or the more the one that people should go after. But I do know this, that when they announced this fight, it was, I think, like the second highest to sell out our pre-sale tickets at the Madison Square Garden, and a first for women. So that kind of tells you how important this women's boxing match is for Taylor and Serrano. So I think that says a lot. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be the moment, back to watching live and this and that. I'm going to have my phone and my tablet at work. So hopefully none of my guys are hearing this from work, but I'm going to have my phone and my tablet. I'll be watching both. And I hope, one ends a little sooner than the other one starts, because that would be a treat. And I think they've even mentioned it before too. I think Stevenson even said, hey, it'd be cool if we started a little bit earlier, or however. I don't remember which one it was, but I know he mentioned that he wouldn't mind if they somehow offsetted the timing on those fights to happen. But with this one, I'm gonna pull away with Serrano. What I'm happy to see is that Jake Paul isn't fighting on this undercard, even though he's co-promoting with Eddie Hearn. And I think for me, in my mind, I think that was one of my thoughts, was that he was going to do that, take advantage of a big promotion on DAZN and try to maybe throw himself in there and with somebody. But I'm glad he's not. He's sticking to his promoter cap. So thankful for that one.
Oh, yeah. And Nando says here that there's going to be no overlap for Serrano Taylor because it's going to start around 10 p.m. Eastern time. Nico Ali Walsh will kick off the ESPN card at the same time. Well, that's good to know, man. And just a quick look at the odds. Katie Taylor is a slight underdog. I mean, this is still, according to the bookmakers, like, this is coin flip. Like, Amanda Serrano is only a negative 145 favorite. And they definitely expect this one to go to the cards based on the over-under. Noteball, what do you think about this fight, brother?
You know what? I'm definitely gonna try to watch it, but I don't got much to say about it, bro. Not really too much into women's boxing. Not to say I won't get into it eventually, but I do know that about both girls a little bit, but not enough to really say who I think is gonna win.
Which one do you
But
think is cuter?
Which one do I think is cuter? I don't know, man. They're both about the same. I'd say maybe Serrano slightly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say Serrano, but I think that
Yeah.
Katie Taylor would be like the better wife. You know what I mean? But I think Serrano would be like a good ride. I mean, not like sexually.
Yeah.
I mean that too, but that's not what I'm talking about. It'd just be like a good. Wow, I'll shut up now. I'll shut up. All right, well, dude, I want to thank everybody. I know, right? I want to thank everybody.
I'm kidding, man.
For coming over. And dude, and next week, man, we are gonna have our Canelo special, man, dude, and nobody does it like the Al Chile crew, dude. We're gonna be doing a 12 rounds, and in honor of like how ESPN used to do it, but we're gonna have our own spin on it. Hopefully we get the whole crew, and we're going to have a good time as we look forward to Canelo versus Bivol. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming in, dude, and we'll see you all next week. Take care.
Peace.